Well, we said this morning who had been in the war, were my mum's dad, my great-grandfather. He was in the First World War, came back a different man. My father-in-law, Carol's mum and dad, was in the war. He was landed at Dunkirk. Landed on D-Day. He drove a tank, bless his heart. Nearly run over General Montgomery, who was coming the wrong way. Didn't, thank goodness. And on the grounds of remembrance. I know I've said the story before, but a lot of you haven't heard it, so I'll say it because we're remembering. That's the key thing, we're remembering. And my remembrance of this is that in the war, as you probably know, the Second World War, a lot of people went away, the children were sent away, all my mum's family went, including my sister. My dad was ill, so my mum refused to go. Who's heard the story? Hands up, who's heard the story? Okay, well there's a lot there. My mum was, you have to remember, was an extremely strong-willed lady. And so the council came down and said, you've got a young child. I was born, I'd just been born, 1943. The bombs were falling, the doodlebugs, which were the V2s, were coming over a great lot. We lived in Cheam, posh part, but there was a barracks literally up the road, which was a secondary target for the Prophet. And so they said, you've got to have an air raid shelter. So she said, I'm not having you digging up my garden. You dig up the neighbour's garden, I'll go in there. So they dug up the neighbour's garden, put in the shelter, and she said, I ain't having anything to do with that, that's cold in there, that's damp. You'll have to do something else. So they said, right, we'll reinforce under the stairs. They did, and she went in that on an air raid, said, I ain't going that again. I'm not being in confined places like that. Okay, then we'll bring along an iron table. So that when the bombs fall, you go under the table and the ceiling don't fall on your head. She did that once and she said, I ain't having that. So her resolution was that when the air raid siren went, she put me in my pram and she went out and dodged the V2s, which were called doodlebugs. And I don't know if you know, is a bomb on a rocket. So when you hear the rocket, as long as you keep hearing it, fading, you're fine. But if you hear it and it stops, you run. And that's precisely what she did do. And there were lots of bombs that fell around where we were. Lots of them. Now, you know Adrian Bellel, that was Sarah that just played the piano with Pastor before. I was telling him this story after he'd known me for quite a while. And some of you, or most of you, have known me. And his comment was, when I told him that story, he said, so your mum basically pushed you around with the bombs falling around her. And I said, yeah, that's quite true. He said, well, Pete, that explains a lot. The people that fell as soldiers, there was an enormous resolution of the people that were still here. Enormous strength and resolution. And that we should have.